Hi everyone, my name is Sefa. Today I would like to talk about my final research project ED798. In short, my research study was about effects of hands-on activities in science classrooms. What we researched was how students can improve their learning using hands-on activities in the classrooms. Let's talk about a little bit background, what researchers said that about study. Let's start with Bilgin. According to Bilgin, students would be able to display mastery of science concepts in an engaging and fun manner when they did hands-on activities. His study showed the effects of hands-on activities as incorporated in a cooperative learning approach. Friedman's idea similarly emphasized the fact that students were very engaged and that they participate at a very high level when they did hands-on activities. He pointed out that students improved their knowledge by themselves through the use of hands-on activities. Another group of researchers, Osterman, expressed the view that hands-on activities help teachers more successfully deliver science topics to students who have a difficult time understanding and mastering these concepts from the textbooks. Prokop found that hands-on activities help students better understand the subject matter, and they showed increased confidence in their abilities to handle these activities. More researchers. Some studies supported the idea that hands-on activities positively affected students' knowledge and science. Devlin explained that these students who were involved in hands-on activities were much better in following the instructions. Lastly, Ates and Elielmaz researchers explained that students' hands-on activities were most effective when they studied the topic of electric circuits in physics. They study about electric circuits. According to them, students displayed higher levels of achievement in physics when they conducted hands-on activities in comparing to the traditional instructions methods used in the classrooms. Let's talk about the purpose of the study. This study had the purpose of investigation the effects of hands-on activities on 7th grade science students. We worked on especially 7th grade science students. The study was completed in 60 students, like 60 7th grade students. We divided into two groups, like 30. The groups named 7A and 7B. School was Harmony School of Political Science in Austin, located in Austin, Texas. Students in both sections, 7A and 7B, took an identical pre-assessments in the study. What about the research question? My research question was, what is the effect of hands-on activities on mastery of concepts for the 7th grade science students? There were like 3 supplemental questions as well. The first one, how do hands-on activities affect assessment in grades? Second one, what impact do hands-on activities have on students' engagement? Third one, what is the effect of student questioning on implementing hands-on activities? Hypothesis, I believe that allowing students to do science in the classroom through hands-on activities, learning can increase student curiosity and interest, yield positive attitudes towards science, and remarkable improve achievement, all of which may follow them through their future education. Let's talk about a little bit participants for the study. The participants included 42 females and 18 males students, like ages between 12 and 14, who had high science experience. 95% were white and 5% were African American in the traditional group, while 92% were white, 5% were Hispanic, and 3% were African American in the hands-on group. They were selected from a course which they need to learn. Instrument. 3 types of instruments were used by the researcher to collect and analyze data. The instruments were used to analyze students' responses about interest in science, lesson, and learning styles students prefer, and how they felt about their overall understanding of science. Tests were given, surveys were distributed, and observations were made of students' behaviors during different types of lessons. All instruments were used by the researcher during class time. Procedure, like the instruments were chosen to provide the researchers with the information regarding 7th grade students' period thoughts, achievements, and behavior towards science. It was important that guide explained how students receive useful information. Okay, let's talk about the results. As I said, like before, we collect data like using tests, observations, and surveys. All data instruments were collected and analyzed separately. The data were used to support the result of the impact of hands-on activities on the interest and attitudes of middle school science students. The mean and standard deviations for all pre- and post-assessment measured. As a result, there were significant differences in scores between 2 groups. The pre-survey was collected and analyzed prior to school year, and the post-survey was collected at the end of the school year. Student observations were calculated by adding the on-task student behaviors and the off-task students' behaviors during highly interactive lessons compared to more traditional lessons. The results from pre-surveys and observations were compared with the results from post-surveys and observations. The resulting assessments helped to determine the impact that hands-on lessons had on the interest and attitudes of the students. A majority of students' responses, like 55%, indicate that best part of science was doing hands-on activities. The observations took place during the beginning of the third grading period. The observation took place over a 20-minute period, and each student's behavior was recorded at 5-minute intervals. Students' behaviors was recorded as being on task or off task. Pre-assessment and post-assessment have given regards speed, velocity, acceleration, force, motion, and energy. The mean and standard deviations for all pre- and post-assessment were measured. Again, there was significant difference in scores between two groups. Discussion. The study showed more improvement for the hands-on students of 7B than the students of 7A taught using traditional methods. Teachers must promote a positive and safe classroom environment to help foster a positive attitude towards learning science, and they should improve students' hands-on activities, especially in their science classes. Following best practices in science of using both a control and an experimental group and consistently reliable recording of information, finding affirmatively supportive research hypotheses. Students were very curious about this study when we explained the students that their teachers wanted to know what students thought about science. Students appeared to feel important, and responses were quite reflective. Although hands-on learning involves a lot of planning and preparing, there are resources available to aid teachers in the process. Hands-on activities allow students to experience actual science and to become scientists instead of simply students learning about science. Again, in short, we knew that hands-on activities help a lot improving students' learning. We must use hands-on activities in our classroom, especially science classroom, to create more effective and efficient students. Thanks for listening to me.